Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror tonight. I want to bring you some case information about what's happening with James Crumbley. As you already may know, James Crumbley is the father of the mass shooter Ethan Crumbley. He is the young man at the age of 15. He went to his high school, Oxford High School in Michigan, and he did a mass shooting where he unalived four of his fellow students and he injured seven others. So, James Crumbley and Jennifer Crumbley, they were the first parents of a mass shooter to be charged with a level of homicide. In each of their independent cases, they were charged with 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. Recently, Jennifer Crumbley, she was found guilty on all 4 counts. This is a new precedent. People are a little concerned. Would they be charged if their child committed a mass shooting or a violent offense? Um, as I've said in many of my videos in the past, I believe that the circumstances in the Crumbleys' behavior, how they were raising their son, how they were neglecting their son, and also how they purchased him his own gun, coupled with their lack of putting time with him. There were many things that were glaring, like he asked for some mental health counseling from his mother. She laughed at him. He had experienced multiple things that would be considered trauma, like the death of his father's mother, his grandmother, the loss of his only friend. He moved away. His dog passed away. He had many times where he was struggling mentally. He spent a lot of his energy in a negative thought pattern, drawing violent images, watching violent movies and violent acts. There were many signs. So James Crumbley is the last one out of the Crumbley family. Ethan Crumbley, he was sentenced in December of 2023 to life without the possibility of parole. And this mass shooting happened in November of 2021. So Ethan Crumbley, he will be turning 18 this year. And then again, Jennifer Crumbley, she will be sentenced in April of 2023. I believe her sentencing is April 9th. So I will bring an update once she is sentenced. And now James Crumbley, his trial is set to start. Jury selection will start tomorrow, March 5th, 2024. So with all of that being said, today I'm here to bring you a quick update on what's going on. There's been a lot of activity in James Crumbley's hearings and various motions because the trial is about to start. Now, in my prior video, I let you guys know that because Jennifer Crumbley, she was found guilty on all 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, I believe that this triggered James Crumbley and his defense team to try to have the case moved from Oakland County, Michigan, to a different area. Maybe he feels that he will not receive a fair trial since his wife, Jennifer Crumbley, was recently convicted. That motion was denied by the judge. Now, there has been new motions filed, and these relate to Ethan Crumbley's his journal entries that although they were allowed in Jennifer Crumbley's prosecution, he does not want allowed in his prosecution. And then there were also some issues coming up because the prosecution recently added 2 new witnesses. These witnesses are victims of Ethan Crumbley. They were shot in the mass shooting, but they survived. Both of them are now adults. They're 18 or older, so they would like to testify. So there were motions filed against them testifying. Primarily, the motions relate to why are they being added as potential witnesses when their testimony is not relevant because James Crumbley is not being charged with the gun and he's not being charged with attempted murder. He's only being charged for involuntary manslaughter, which does not involve these two victims. Now, they are victims. However, the charges that he's being prosecuted for do not involve them. Therefore, their testimony is not relevant to the case. So we have some motions that the judge has recently decided prior to the trial, which again, jury selection starts tomorrow, March the 5th, and you really want to have all of these motions decided, particularly the witnesses, because you have to put a strategy together for the questions, okay? So let's get started. Let's deal with our articles that we're going to work on today, which will be two articles, and they are on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. They're linked there. The first article is coming from DetroitNews.com. The title is Oxford Shooters Journals, Texts Allowed in Dad's Trial. One Oxford student can testify. This article is dated March the 1st, 2024, and the writer is Kara Berg. Okay. I do want to say this before I start. I have an entire series of videos about Ethan Crumbley, Jennifer Crumbley, and of course now James Crumbley in their prosecutions. It may be helpful to go to the either my YouTube channel, Hidden Horror, or my Facebook page. On my Facebook page, I have some of Ethan Crumbley's journal entries. On my Hidden Horror YouTube, I have a short that shows you some of the journal entries. If you want to read Ethan Crumbley's journal entries, you can go to either of those platforms. I think it would be helpful if you're not familiar with the mass shooting that happened in Oxford, Michigan. I really want you to have a full understanding of the mindset of Ethan Crumbley. It was very dark. His thoughts were dark. His drawings were of violence. He had so much time alone that he was able to really spend a lot of his energy in a negative way, planning the mass shooting, writing about what he wanted to do. He really blamed his mental health. He said that his parents, they wouldn't help him. He would try to talk to them again for help. So those videos really detail more that I just can't go over in this short update. But if you refer back to those videos, I think it will be helpful in understanding how we got to this point because these are really historic prosecutions. This has never happened in the United States where parents of the mass shooter have been charged with a level of homicide. So we already know that Jennifer Crumbley, she was convicted. Now she's just waiting to be sentenced next month. And now James Crumbley, his trial will probably be over before Jennifer Crumbley is even sentenced. So that's something that we can look forward to within really the next 30 days or so. Okay, let's get started on our articles. We only have two today. Okay. Prosecutors will be allowed to introduce evidence from the Oxford High School shooter's journal and text messages to his friend during his father's trial, a judge ruled Thursday. Oakland County Circuit Judge Cheryl Matthews also ruled that one injured Oxford High School student will be allowed to testify during James Crumbley's trial, which is set to begin Tuesday. I just want to note something. So in Jennifer Crumbley's trial, neither of these two students testify. So I believe the prosecutor is approaching James Crumbley's trial a little bit different. Um, I think I think because Jennifer Crumbley, she came across very cold. Um, she didn't appear to be a concerned parent or someone that was very nurturing to Ethan Crumbley. From all accounts and things that I have read that I haven't really talked about, but um, from when from when Ethan Crumbley was very young, there were reports that CPS was called, that's Child Protective Services, because he was being left alone. There were instances where allegedly Ethan Crumbley would go to homes in the neighborhood because he was afraid, because he was left alone while his parents they went out without him. They left him home when he was younger, allegedly. So I think the prosecutor she had a lot of instances on Jennifer Crumbley through her through her other things that she was doing, like her extracurricular activities. She had the horses. She spent a lot of time. Sometimes it was 2 to 3 days a week, sometimes 5 days a week with the horses. Also spending thousands on the care of the horses, maintaining them, taking care of them. It's very expensive. Whereas James, we don't know as much about James Crumbley. Allegedly, he purchased Ethan the gun. He took him with him to the gun range. He was allowed to pick the gun out. That was supposed to be an early Christmas gift. But we don't have as many salacious things like the affairs. Whereas Jennifer Crumbley, she was involved in multiple affairs allegedly. That was testimony that she was engaging in multiple affairs allegedly. Whereas with Ethan's dad, James Crumbley, we just don't know. We there were rumors that he was also having an affair, but we really just don't have that knowledge as much as we did with Jennifer Crumbley through her text messaging, through some of the things that came out through testimony, through witnesses like her co-workers and everything. And then her one of her lovers, he testified that was not supposed to come out, but somehow Jennifer Crumbley's defense attorney brought it out. Why, I'm really not sure, but initially the the jury was not really supposed to hear that information. However, Jennifer Crumbley's own defense attorney kind of brought that forth. So I think the prosecutors are approaching it differently because they're going to have to demonstrate the behaviors of the neglect, how he was left alone, how they didn't respond, how they didn't provide him care, ordinary care. You're responsible to provide a level standard of care for your kids, especially if they're reaching out, they're asking for this help, they're demonstrating their actions, which is the drawings, the writings, the depression, the behavior in school, the constant calls from the school of his activities, what he was doing, just leaving him alone, him texting and saying he was alone. He was having all of these visions, and he was hallucinating and seeing things, and this only happened to him when he was left alone. I don't know how much dad knew. I know through Jennifer Crumbley's text messages, she was informed, she knew, but I'm not sure how much dad James Crumbley knew. We just don't know. So I think the prosecutor is trying to get ahead of this by maybe adding additional witnesses, additional evidence that was not presented in Jennifer Crumbley's case, because overall, even when the case was seen in front of the Michigan Court of Appeals, they even had to acknowledge that the prosecutor, through the preliminary hearing, put on a ton of evidence. Like, it's more than enough evidence to show involuntary manslaughter. Like, no, you can be prosecuted. Taking this to the highest court. We believe they have enough evidence that they can pursue, take these charges against you for involuntary manslaughter. They agree with the prosecutor. So I think the prosecutor is kind of wising up and preparing for this trial just a little bit different, not the same as what evidence was put on in Jennifer Crumbley's trial. Um, I don't think they just have as much of that evidence that's damning, like they did through Jennifer Crumbley's text messaging and things like that. Okay, let's continue on. So they're going to allow, out of the two students that are 18, they're going to allow one student to testify. I don't know how they're picking them, or I know that I'm sure they both had their own views of what happened in that hallway to them. So I guess they'll have to make that decision. The prosecutor will have to make that decision on which of the two will testify. Okay, let's keep going. Mario Lehman, Crumbley's attorney, sought to exclude the journal in which the team detailed his plans to shoot up Oxford High School. She also wanted to exclude text and student testimony from the trial, arguing it would be unfair to allow the journal entries and text into the trial if she is not allowed to cross-examine the shooter. Okay, let me just say this, and I'm sure I've said it in my past videos. Ethan Crumbley, he cannot testify. I mean, he could choose to testify, but he's not going to. If they were to bring him forth, and I'm sure all of the attorneys, I'm sure the judge is aware of this, he's going to plead the fifth, that he would self-incriminate himself if he testified on either his mom, Jennifer Crumbley, or his dad, James Crumbley's behalf. The reason being is he's going to appeal his case. Even though they have him on video, clearly, he did this. There's witnesses that survived. There's administrators that survived. He's still going to appeal it because I believe every defendant, they want to be free. Even if they did something wrong, somehow, some way, they feel like at some point I want a second chance. And there's no hope if I have this sentence life without the possibility of parole. He was 15 years old. 15 years old when this happened. Life for him could be another 60, 70, 80 years or more. So he's thinking, I'm sure, I have to appeal. Everybody appeals. So he can't testify for either mom or dad. And I think that's why when he gave his statement, he was allowed to give a statement, and he did apologize to the families and the victims. And he made a statement that said, my mom and dad basically, they didn't know what I was going to do. They weren't involved. That is from a child's perspective. We have to remember, okay, at that time, he was 17 years old at sentencing. This is still from a young person, a developing mind. We as adults, we know that we have to take responsibility and we have to do what's best for everyone. So when we're thinking about things, we can't just think casually about things. We have to care. We have to care about our kids and other kids. When we go and we're thinking protection, we're not just thinking of our child, we're thinking of all of the kids, right? So when this happened, and Ethan did this, of course, the parents are going to be looked at. How could this happen? Did you see any signs? What was his behavior like? What was his home life like? Was he having issues? Was he struggling? Was he on any drugs? Was he involved in any illegal activity? They're going to look at everything, including the parents, because the parents is really the source, the foundation of how a child develops, how they become themselves, their personality, their behavior. How do they respond? How do they deal with conflict? What things are they seeing in their daily lives? So all of that compounded together helps you form and develop who you're going to be in life. And if they look at Ethan, Ethan was very depressed. He was very sad. He was dark. He wore the dark clothing. He drew evil pictures depicting violence. unaliving someone, thinking of all these negative things to do, who he would attack, how he would do it, why he was doing it. He literally said, I'm going to do this shooting at the school because I have no help for my mental problems. He was writing on his classwork, help me. He was drawing pictures, unaliving someone, blood spattering, guns on the paper. It was everything that he thought, that he planned, he drew it out before he ever did it. He wrote it in the journal. He drew it on the papers. He drew help me. He asked for help. And somehow, some way, no one ever illuminated him, put light on him, identified him as a child that was struggling, and he needed it now. His parents didn't see it. The school administrators didn't see it, and no one did anything about it. No one collided into his life, pulled him out of this dark place, talked to him, really mentored him, spent time with him, cared about him, asked about him. He was overlooked. That's how this really happened. And it starts at home with the two people that know him the best, his mom and his dad, and it's what they saw, what they allowed, and the fact that they purchased him the gun, they gave him the bullets, they drove him to the school, and he unleashed all of his anger. Anything he felt, anything he thought, he imagined, he played it in his mind, he planned it for months, he researched the bullets, he researched the guns. He thought about what he was going to do before he ever did it. He planned it out. He drew it, he wrote it, he talked about it, he made videos about it. And the night before the mass shooting, when he had the big fight with his parents, allegedly, and when he got locked out of the house, because that was the testimony in Jennifer Crumbley's trial, that he was locked out of the house the night before. And he did that 19-minute video outside of the house. He described everything he was going to do the next day. He decided then that he was going to do the mass shooting the next day. And he took that gun to school. His dad drove him to school, dropped him off, and it didn't stop because his parents came. He didn't care. He didn't care that he was in trouble. He didn't care that they had just came up to the school. Let me continue. But since Ethan Crumbley is debating whether to file an appeal of his sentence and plea, he has said through his attorneys that if he is called to testify, he will assert his Fifth Amendment right to stay silent to avoid self-incrimination. He also refused to waive privilege of his medical records and mental health information. Matthews has previously ruled that limited excerpts from the teen's journal and texts between him and his friend and mother were non-testimonial and admissible by law. Lehman's request to exclude them is essentially an untimely motion for reconsideration, Matthews said, and she did not demonstrate error or that a different decision must be made. Matthews also said the shooter's medical records have to remain confidential because she reviewed the records and there is no indication that there is exculpatory evidence or contradictory information in the records. So they're not going to give those medical records up. She's saying that there's no evidence to show that they should be turned over to the defense. They have to remain confidential. There's nothing that's going to show that James Crumbley is innocent, so they're not going to provide them. Matthews made the same ruling before the trial of Crumbley's wife, Jennifer. Jennifer was, I want to say Jennifer Crumbley to be respectful. Jennifer Crumbley was convicted in early February and is set to be sentenced April 9th. Matthews also said one Oxford high school student injured in the shooting would be able to testify during James' trial. Prosecutors previously added three Oxford high school students and the previous owner of the gun that shooter Ethan Crumbley took to school in November 2021 to their witness list for James Crumbley. Prosecutors changed their mind about calling one of the students, and Matthews said they could choose one of the two remaining students. I'm not going to say their names just out of respect for them until they testify, okay? Both girls were injured in the school hallway when the shooter opened fire. Matthews said because these two victims were on the original witness list and because Lehman has not shown Crumbley would be unduly prejudiced by adding them to the list, prosecutors can call one of the students. The court cautions the people to be highly cognizant of the sensitive nature of the testimony in combination with eliciting testimony from an understandably highly traumatized young adult, Matthews wrote. The court will prohibit witness testimony detailing personal pain and suffering, emotional trauma, and or ongoing medical treatment / issues as same is respectfully not relevant to prove the elements of the crime of involuntary manslaughter. So the judge is really putting restrictions out there. They don't want it to be a highly charged witness. They want the witness to be able to speak, to not be emotional, not to bring any of their medical issues or treatment up. They don't want it to be emotionally heightened for the jury to watch. So they want to make sure that this is going to elicit worthy information. You know, the view, what happened next, what was Ethan Crumbley doing? You know, how did everything unfold? They want someone that is prepared to testify without any of the trauma or emotional pain that they probably still experience to this day. Okay. Assistant prosecutor Mark Keese said they added the students to the witness list just in case their other school witnesses, Christy Gibson Marshall, she was an excellent assistant principal. I mean, she was very good, very compelling in Jennifer Crumbley's trial. At Oxford High School, and teacher Molly Darnell, who was shot, were unable to testify during Crumbley's trial. So they just want to make sure that they have some witnesses that are already approved on the list. So if one witness can appear, then someone else can be ready to go, which is understandable. These are educators, so school is in session right now during this trial. Gibson, Marshall, and Darnell both testified during the trial for Jennifer Crumbley, the shooter's mother. Jennifer was convicted of 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter February the 6th. Lehman said the testimony of the students is irrelevant and unfairly prejudicial. Lehman asked Matthews to not allow the students to testify. The horrific testimony about what occurred in the school is not relevant and would certainly inflame the emotions of the jury and confuse them as to what the relevant issues are, Lehman wrote. Details of what the victims of the shooter's actions experienced are irrelevant to the elements of the charge against Mr. Crumbley and are not relevant to the material issues of the elements of the charged offenses. So again, as I said in the last video, they're saying, hey, he's not charged with attempted murder. He's not charged with a gun. These witnesses are not relevant. He's charged with involuntary manslaughter for the 4 victims that were killed, not these other students that were injured and witnesses. But people use witnesses all the time because that camera doesn't have sound. The camera in the school does not have sound, and it doesn't have every view. This person has firsthand knowledge. These students were there. They have firsthand knowledge of what happened. Okay, let's keep going. But Key said the witnesses are necessary to prove the deaths of Hannah St. Juliana, 14, Madison Baldwin, 17, Justin Schilling, 17, and Tate Meir, 16. Based on his most recent motion, James Crumbley would like to distance himself from the devastation and his gross negligence, Keith wrote. The people agreed that the defendant is entitled to due process and a fair trial, and he will get it. But he is not entitled to a trial sanitized of any details about how these students were killed. I agree. I feel strongly that it's for justice for these jurors to know the details. And then lastly, the shooter was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole in December. Okay. I just want to quickly go over one other article that I found very interesting. It's in the DetroitNews.com. Kara Berg is our author again, and she wrote it March the 1st, 2024. James Crumbley said he hasn't paid attorneys since he sold Oxford House in 2022 affidavit. James Crumbley has not paid his attorney for nearly 2 years since his Oxford home was sold, according to an affidavit he filed with the court. The father of the Oxford High School shooter, who is set to go on trial starting Tuesday for 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter, has been in custody in the Oakland County Jail since his arrest December 4th, 2021. He has not been able to convince judges in Oakland County to reduce his bond, and he cannot afford his $500,000 bond, Crumbley wrote. That's pretty high, but the reason it's high is because there appeared to be allegedly like they were trying to escape. They were hiding out in Detroit, Michigan, which is a nice distance from Oxford High School. I believe it's like a suburb of Detroit. They had cash on them, and they appeared to be on the run, like they were trying to leave. They did not turn themselves in to law enforcement. So they put up a pretty high bond, and they can't afford it. They couldn't afford to pay that. Let's continue. I have not paid my attorney additional funds since the funds provided after the sale of my home, Crumbley wrote. The Crumbley's East Street home in Oxford was sold in March 2022 for $150,000 according to county records. Crumbley faces 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter in connection with the November 2021 mass shooting his son committed at Oxford High School that killed 4 students: Hannah St. Juliana, 14, Madison Baldwin, 17, Justin Schilling, 17, and Tate Meir, 16. His wife, Jennifer, has already been convicted of the same manslaughter charges, and his son, Ethan Crumbley, was sentenced to life without parole in December. Merrill Lehman, James Crumbley's attorney, cannot speak about the case because of a gag order put in place by Oakland County Circuit Court Judge Cheryl Matthews. Crumbley filed the affidavit in connection with a request for free transcripts of his wife's trial, which concluded in February. Matthews ruled that Crumbley is indigent and has no assets or way to earn money, as he has been in jail for more than 2 years. Crumbley said in the affidavit that he has no access to additional assets or money to pay for litigation costs, including the cost of transcripts. The request may be a moot point as Crumbley's trial is set to begin Tuesday and the transcripts had not been put into the court records as of Friday. So the reason I wanted to bring this article is just to show that Mr. Crumbley, he's been arrested since December of 2021. The home that they lived in Oxford, it had been sold back in March of 2022. And he's saying, I have no funds, I have no assets, I have no way to earn any money. I can't post a bond, and now I can't even afford to get all of the transcripts from my wife's prosecution. So he wants that to be provided to him so they can review that information for his trial. His trial starts, well, the actual trial jurisdiction starting tomorrow, and then the trial probably will pick up if they want to go maybe Thursday or Friday, or maybe they'll push it to Monday. I'm not sure what the trial schedule is. I would have to look into that. But I just wanted to show that and go over that, as well as he's saying he just does not have any funds left because he has no way to earn any money. So I just wanted to bring you a quick update. The jury selection starts tomorrow with James Crumbley. I will bring an update in a few days once the trial starts, and we'll see how this one kicks off. It should only be about a 2-week period. After the James Crumbley trial, I will be back to finish the last two parts of the Idaho 4 case, my little mini series. Those last two parts. Part 7 coming up is going to be about why the police, how they handled the, how do we want to call it? How they handled, really how they handled the case, how they misled us. We can definitely look at that, and it's going to go to show my belief that someone in law enforcement killed the Idaho 4 students. So you can look forward to that. And then I will have my last part, part 8, that's going to bring the entire mini series, all 7 parts together to demonstrate why I believe that. So that will be after the James Crumbley trial, unless I where somehow we will see. I'm hoping to do those last 2 parts very soon before the sentencing of Jennifer Crumbley. So I will try to get it in there maybe this weekend coming up. If James Crumbley trial doesn't just take flight, we'll see. So thank you for checking out this video. Remember, please stay smart, stay safe, be savvy, be well, all my friends. Good night, everybody. Bye.